one variable on other variable, then that is called elasticity. For example, if price changes by 10%, then by how much will demand change for a particular product? That will be called price elasticity of demand. Similarly, if price of a particular product changes by 10%, then what will be the impact on supply of that product? That will be called supply elasticity or price elasticity of supply. Similarly, if your income changes by 5% or 10% or 15%, then what will be the impact of this change in your income on the demand for a certain product? That will be called income elasticity of demand. So basically, elasticity simply measures the impact of change in one variable on some other variable. And of course, there will be some impact only if the two variables are related. And if they are not related, then chances are that there will be no impact. So in this connection, I had also told you about the various ways in which we can measure elasticity. And I had also briefed you about the interpretation of the elasticity values. So quickly recall the interpretation. So suppose price elasticity of demand is equal to minus 1.7 or minus 1.9. Of course, we traditionally, conventionally do not use the minus sign. It is understood that the elasticity is minus because there is an inverse relationship between demand and price. So if the elasticity value is minus 1.7, what it means is that a 1% change in the price will bring about a 1.7% change in demand. If price elasticity is 0.7, that is minus 0.7, then what it means is that a 1% change in the price of the product will bring about a 0.7% change in the demand for that product. And if the value of elasticity is equal to 1, which is what is called the benchmark or reference point, then the impact of change in the price of a product has same impact on the demand for that product. That is, if price changes by 5%, demand also changes by 5%. If price changes by 20%, demand also changes by 20%. So that is what is called unit elasticity. I had also told you something about relatively elastic demand and relatively inelastic demand. Can you recall the definition of relatively elastic and relatively inelastic demand? Anyone who can recall and quickly tell us?
Sir, elasticity is greater than 1, then it is relatively elastic demand, and if elasticity is less than 1, then it is relatively inelastic demand.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good answer. Very good answer. So if value of elasticity is greater than 1, we term it as relatively elastic demand or responsive demand. Responsive demand means that the change in demand is more than the change in price. And if the value of elasticity is less than unit or less than 1, then it means that the demand is relatively unresponsive. So the large change in price will bring about a very small change in demand. So that is what is called relatively inelastic demand. And say a product like salt have relatively inelastic demand, and products like, let's say, automobiles have relatively elastic demand. So basically, this is what we had discussed in the last class. Yeah, one more thing that we had discussed was different types of elasticity measurements. One was called point elasticity of demand, another was called arc elasticity of demand, yet another was called cross price elasticity of demand. Can you quickly recall what is cross price elasticity of demand?
The elasticity which is calculated to measure the pattern of demand of substitute and complementary goods.
Yeah, exactly. Very good answer. So if price of a substitute product changes, then what will be the impact of that change in the price of the substitute good on the product that we wish to measure the impact on? Say, for example, coffee and tea. we wish to know what will be the impact of change in the price of coffee on demand for tea. So we are not trying to measure the impact of change in the price of coffee on the demand for coffee. We wish to measure the impact of change in the price of coffee on demand for tea, not coffee. So that is what we call cross elasticity of demand. Here, in terms of cross elasticity of demand, it does matter whether the cross elasticity is positive or negative. If cross elasticity is positive, then what kind of products are indicated? Substitute or complementary?
So complementary.
Substitute, not complementary. For complementary products, the cross elasticity will be negative. So let me explain. So we are talking about tea and coffee. We want to know what will be the impact on demand for tea if price of coffee changes. Now, if price of coffee goes up, what will happen to the demand for tea?
It will increase.
So demand for tea will go up. So both are going up. Price of coffee goes up, price and then demand for tea also goes up, which means both numerator and denominator are positive. So the net will be positive. If price of coffee goes down, what will be the impact on demand for tea?
It will decrease, sir.
Demand for tea will fall. So both are negative. So negative quantity divided by another negative quantity will be a positive quantity. So remember that if cross elasticity is positive, then it indicates substitute goods. And if cross elasticity is negative, then it indicates complementary goods. For example, demand for car and price of petrol. If price of petrol goes up, what do you expect the demand for cars to become? Less or more?
So less.
Yeah, so demand for car will be less. Of course, we are all along presuming that all other factors are kept constant. That is something which we are presuming all along. So it may sometimes happen that the price of petrol has gone up, but you still find that the demand for car is also going up. So you may wonder, why is that happening? So that may happen because other factors may also be simultaneously changing. For example, income, etc., tastes, etc., preferences, etc. So they may also be changing. So in nutshell, if cross elasticity is positive, then it is substitute goods. If cross elasticity is negative, then it is complementary goods. Now, in today's class, we will try to learn two things. One, how to measure point elasticity of demand, and two, how to forecast demand. So these are the two things that we will try to focus on. So let me then start presenting my screen to you. Let me know whether it is visible to you or not as soon as I'm there. Is it visible?
Yes, sir. It's
Yes, sir.
visible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So let me now go back to my remote control. Okay, so there we are. Before I do this exercise or this explanation, before I do this, so let me quickly tell you that this is what I intend to do. The first lesson that we wish to proceed with is how to measure point elasticity of demand. Point elasticity of demand. Now, we have already seen what is the formula to calculate point elasticity. What was that formula? It was delta Q by delta P into P by Q. This is the formula. What did we term this term? It is slope. Slope into P by Q. This is the formula to calculate point elasticity. So basically we need three quantities: slope, price at which we wish to calculate elasticity, and the quantity which is determined by the equilibrium price, or the price at which we wish to calculate the point elasticity. This is the first lesson. What is the second lesson that we wish to take up for discussion today? How to forecast sales, or how to forecast demand. So these are the two lessons that we wish to discuss today. So let us start with this one. So the market for a few decades, changes in the wheat market had major implications for both American farmers and US agricultural policy. Of course, this example has been taken from a book written by American authors. So therefore, the example has also come from America. But you know, wheat market is very, very important in India also. I know it for sure because once our family owned a flour mill. A flour mill happens to be a factory where the wheat is processed into flour. And even a slight change in the price of wheat could have meant losses or profits of lakhs of rupees. So basically, changes in the price of wheat have huge implications for not only farmers, but also processors, that is, those who process wheat into flour and do a lot of other things. So I know it personally that there is a lot of implication on not only farmers, but also agricultural policy. So I referred to something called the minimum support price earlier. So wheat also happens to be one of the products, or one of the agricultural products for which the government announces minimum support price. Now, let us say, to understand what happens and how to calculate the elasticity of demand for wheat with respect to price using point method, let us examine the behavior of supply and demand beginning in 1981. So, of course, this is a very old example, but this can easily become 2020 or 2019. So these are the two curves: supply curve or supply equation, and this is the demand curve, demand equation. Remember, in one of the economics classes, I had told you about the equation of a straight line. Did I ever tell you about the equation of a straight line in economics class? I know that HR students are now aware of the straight line equation and the concept of intercept and slope, because I am also teaching them quantitative techniques and statistics. But what about students studying IT? Are you aware of this concept of straight line, especially students of IT? And what is intercept?
Yes, sir, you discussed in the last class.
Okay, so I have already discussed it with this class. Okay, so in case of the supply curve, what is the slope? What is the slope of the supply curve?
So 240.
slope of supply curve is 240. What is the slope of demand curve?
So 266.
Minus 266. Right? Are we getting background sound when I'm asking questions, or is it an answer of my question, or is it something else? Thoughts on that? Okay. So this is the supply curve, this is the demand curve. Now, in order to determine the equilibrium price, tell me what do we do next?
Supply equal to demand.
So we have to equate the two.
Yes, sir.
Quantity supplied must be equal to quantity demanded. So what will we do? 1800 plus 240 must be set equal to 3550 minus 266p. Correct? Now, 1800 plus 240p, this is p. Let us bring p on one side and the terms which are constants on the other side. So 240p plus 266p is equal to 3550 minus 1880. So this becomes 506p equal to 0, 7, 6. Are my calculations correct?
No, sir, it will be 1800, sir.
Yes, sir.
800 तो नहीं हो सकता, 800 नहीं होगा.
So 1800, sir.
So 1750.
1800. Okay,
Yes,
0, 15 minus 8. 15 minus 8, that is 7. 15 minus 8 is 7. 15 minus 8 is 6. And then 2 minus 1. Huh?
3550 minus 1880 is 1670.
So it is 1800.
It
sir.
should be
Sir,
1800.
it will be
Supply, it
1800.
mentioned 1800, sir. In supply, it
He
is
wrote
mentioned
by
1800.
mistake 1880.
Oh God. 3550 minus 1880 is 1670. ठीक तो है?
Sir, yeah, actually,
1888.
one equation में
1800.
So
main
188.
Not 1800.
So 188.
Oh, ये 1880 नहीं हुआ.
Yeah, right.
Okay. This is 1800. Okay, sorry. This is 1800.
So the answer now becomes 1750.
So अब ये कितना हो जाएगा?
1750.
1750.
1750. So if it is 1750, then P will be equal to how much? 1750 divided by?
506.
So 1750 divided by 506, which is 3.46. 3.46. So if the price is in dollar, so we will write dollar. 3.46. So this is the equilibrium price. Is this okay? Now, what will be the equilibrium demand and equilibrium supply? How will we know that?
So we substitute the value of P.
So we
So we put the
substitute
value of
P value.
P in the
Yeah.
equation.
Yeah, so let us substitute this in supply equation. 1800 plus 240 into 3.46, and this will become 3550 minus 266 into 3.46. So can you calculate this quickly for us? 3.46 into 240, that is 830. 1800 minus 830.4 is 969.6. Is this? $1,800 minus 240 into 3.46.
It's
So it is
1800.
1800 plus, sir. It will be 2630.4.
Oh, plus है. अच्छा अच्छा. So 1800 plus 3.46 into 240 is 2630. So this is 2630. 2630. And what will this be? 3500 minus 266 into 3.46. This is equal to 2.2579. But they should both be equal actually. There should not be any difference because if the price which you have calculated is correct, then the demand should be same as supply. Are you getting it? So this can't be allowed. 3550 minus 2.66 into 3.46 is 3540.
It's not 2.66. It's
No, it is also 2660. Sir, it's 3550.
3.46. That is 920.36. Okay.
Answer same here.
And 3550 minus 920 is 2630. ठीक है? Both are 2630.
Yes.
Both are 2630. Are you convinced that both are 2630?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes,
both are
sir.
2630. So how do we summarize it? Equilibrium price is 3.46. Equilibrium quantity demanded is 2630. I'm getting some background noise, so
Soumya,
we
please
request-
mute yourself.
then supply is also 2630. So this is how we summarize this whole information. This entire thing will be written next. So by setting the market equal to demand and supply, we can determine the clearing price of wheat for 1981. And this is how it is 3.46. Here, you will get this thing here, 3.46. Demand is this much. So P is 3.46. And the supply equation gives you what value? 2630 million bushels of wheat. We use the demand curve to find the price elasticity. So now we will find the price elasticity. Elasticity of price is equal to slope into P by Q. Slope into P by Q. So if price is 3.46, if price is 3.46, what is the quantity? 2630. And what is the slope of the demand curve? What is the slope? Minus
3.46.
Minus 266.
Minus 266 is the slope of the demand curve. So minus 266 into price is 3.46 divided by the total quantity demanded and supplied at that price. Not supplied, but demanded at that price. So that is 2630. So if you solve it, what do you get? So that is what we will show. So this is 346 divided by 2630 into minus 2.66. Can you see this? 3.46 by 2630. This is what we have written here. Into slope, that is minus 266, is equal to 0.35. Of course, this is minus 0.35. This is the demand elasticity or price elasticity of demand. What if we wish to calculate the price elasticity of supply at this price? What will we do? So we write supply elasticity.
Change the slope.
Supply elasticity will be equal to slope of the supply curve into P by Q. So what is the slope of the supply curve? 240, I believe.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir. 240.
So this is 240 into P is 3.46 divided by Q is 2630. So how much is this? I think this is slightly more, I believe. So the demand and this is price elasticity is minus 0.32. Sorry, plus 0.32. This is the supply elasticity. 0.32. So both are relatively inelastic. Demand is also relatively inelastic. Supply is also relatively inelastic. So this is what we have written here. That because the supply and demand curves are linear, the price elasticities will vary as we move along the curves. Now, what does this line mean? What it means is that as you change the price, your elasticity will also change. So let us say instead of 3.46, what if price is $4 per bushel? If price is $4, what will be the demand? So demand will be equal to, what was the demand? What was the demand? Quickly go through it.
Sir, 2630 quantity demand.
So it is 4630. Is that so?
Sir, 2630. Sir, according to the last question.
26. Yeah,
Sir, 26, not 46.
2630.
2630. So what will be the elasticity of demand? Slope is still the same, minus 266, but now price to quantity ratio changes. 4 upon 2630. How much is this? Minus 266 into 4 by 2630.
Sir, 0.40.
0.40. Minus or plus?
Some minus.
Plus, sir. Plus.
So minus 0.40.
Minus.
Now, when price was 3.46, what was the elasticity? Minus 0.35. When price is 4.00, elasticity is minus 0.40. So when you change the price, the elasticity also changes. And you will notice that at higher prices, the elasticity is higher. At lower prices, elasticities are lower. To just take up one more example, let us say price is equal to $5. If price is equal to $5, will elasticity increase even more or not? So if price is $5, what will be the quantity? Please calculate it and let us know.
0.5.
Much?
So we have to calculate quantity demanded.
Quantity demanded when price is 5. Of course,
Sir, 181.96. 19.96.
1819.96. So let us take
Yes,
it as 1820. 1820.
Yes,
Now you calculate price elasticity is minus 266 into 5 divided by 1820. Is it more than 0.40 or not?
So minus
Sir, minus
0.73.
0.7.
Minus
Minus
0.73.
minus 0.7. So when price is $5, elasticity is equal to minus 0.7. So what conclusion can we draw from this example? Higher the price, higher the elasticity, lower the price, lower the elasticity. Can you think of reason, logic behind it? What could possibly be the logic? When price is high, elasticity is also high. When price is low, elasticity is also low. Why is that so?
So because in this we are taking income to be constant, so that is why.
No,
Purchasing
that
power.
is always taken. No,
Okay.
that is not. I'm talking about logic. Think of yourself or your friend. When will they respond more to a change in price, and when they will
Sir,
respond
if
less
the
to a
pricing,
change?
sir, the logic is
Because
that, sir,
the
if the
wood is
price
more
increase,
affordable.
The logic is
so the logic is that if the price increases, then the consumer will won't want to purchase that product.
नहीं, वो तो
They
खैर
will wait
ठीक
for the
है.
price to decrease.
Sir, price
Sir,
will increase and quantity
Price
will
will
decrease. So due to which the elasticity will also increase. क्योंकि price बढ़ रहा है तो ऊपर price by quantity.
नहीं,
Sir, a
नहीं,
higher
that
price
is-
gives a higher margin for change.
No, no. अच्छा, आपको कब ज्यादा फर्क पड़ेगा प्राइस बढ़ने से? जब प्राइस पहले से ही काफी हाई हो और तब बढ़े, या प्राइस पहले काफी कम है ऑलरेडी और उसके बाद बढ़े? जैसे अगर आप सोचो पहले 2 रुपीज वो बढ़ करके हो जाए 3 रुपीज, एक तो ये सिचुएशन है, और एक है कि प्राइस है 2000 रुपीज और ये बढ़ करके हो जाए 2001 रुपीज. तो दोनों केस में extent of change in the price is $1. लेकिन यहां पर ऑलरेडी आप बहुत प्राइस दे रहे थे, 2000 रुपीज दे रहे थे पहले से ही, और फिर अगर देना पड़ जाए आपको तो आपको वो पिंच करेगा. और यहाँ पे आप अगर पहले 2 रुपए दे रहे थे और अभी कोई 3 रुपया मांगे तो आपको लगेगा कि कोई बात नहीं, बहुत प्राइस पहले से ही बहुत कम है, अभी 3 रुपया मांग रहा है तो दे दो. तो यहाँ पे आपको बहुत फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, लेकिन यहाँ पे आपको फर्क पड़ जाएगा क्योंकि आपका प्राइस ऑलरेडी काफी हाई है. तो व्हेन प्राइसेस आर ऑलरेडी हाई and if price goes up even more, then the impact on the budget of the family is huge. But when the price is less and price goes up, then the impact on your budget is less. So that is why salt is a relatively inelastic product, because salt prices are already very low, 10 rupees per kg, maybe 5 rupees per kg, and if price goes up by 50 paise, nobody will mind. But if price of a car is 10 lakh rupees and if price of that car becomes 11 lakh rupees, that is if it goes up by 10%, then there will be a huge impact the demand for car, because you were already paying a lot of money for buying a car, and now they're asking for even more. So that is why at higher prices, the responsiveness of demand is relatively more than at lower prices. This is the logic behind it. So this is how we calculate point elasticity of demand. But one thing that you would notice is that we have not yet said कि ये 240 आया कहाँ से, ये 240 कहाँ से आया, जो क्या है 240 क्या है?
Slope.
Slope, sir.
240 है slope of the 240 is the slope of the supply curve. तो आप ये देखो कि दो कर्व है हमारे पास, एक सप्लाई कर्व है और एक डिमांड कर्व है. सप्लाई कर्व है और डिमांड कर्व है. तो देखो सप्लाई कर्व का जो स्लोप है वो कितना है 240 और डिमांड कर्व का स्लोप कितना है 266 minus 266. So the question is, where have we got this from? What have we done? Now here somebody already calculated it, gave us the demand and supply curve, and therefore our job of calculating the point elasticity became very simple. But what if we have to actually estimate the demand equation and estimate the supply equation with the help of some data? What if we have to do that? So that is what we will try and learn next. What if we have to calculate the slope? So you just follow the numerical example that I am going to write to you on your screen, and I'm sure you will be able to understand how to calculate slope. So let us say we have these two columns, the price column and the demand column, quantity demanded column. Price is, just for the sake of simplicity, we are keeping it very simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And demand is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It will take no more than 2 to 3 minutes to explain how to calculate slope. And the method that we are using is called the regression method. I was discussing regression method with students of human resource management yesterday. And I believe that if students of information technology have not yet been exposed to the regression equation analysis, I'm sure Mahua ma'am will do so very soon. But right now, I'll simply tell you a few steps you have to follow in order to calculate the slope of the demand equation. So what is it that we are trying to achieve? Calculate slope of the demand curve. So step number 1, first understand what is this data all about. When price is 1 per unit, what is the total demand? 5 units. Price goes up from 1 to 2, demand falls from 5 to 4. Price further goes up from 2 to 3, demand falls from 4 to 3, and so on. Next, find out what is the mean of P. What is mean of P? 3. That is total P divided by 5. What is the mean demand? That is Q bar D. That is also 3. Because 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 is same as 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. So this is 3. Next, you calculate something called small p, which is equal to P minus P bar. So this is minus 2, minus 1, 0, plus 1, plus 2. Then you calculate small d, that is demand minus average demand. So that is 5 minus 3, that is plus 2, 4 minus 3, plus 1, so 0, minus 1, minus 2. Then you square the small p. So that becomes 4, 1, 0, 1, 4. Total is 10. then you cross multiply small p into small d. Small p into small d. So it is -2 into +2. -4. -1 into +1. -1. This is 0. This is -1. This is -4. Total is -10. Right? So the slope is, this is how we write. Quantity demanded is equal to A plus B P. And B is the slope. And B is equal to summation of small p into small d divided by summation of small p square. So that is equal to -10 divided by +10, which is equal to -1. So B is equal to -1. This is called the slope of the demand curve. So following a rule like this, we must have got that -266, which is the slope of demand curve. So ये क्या हुआ होगा? हमने पहले व्हीट और उसके प्राइस का डेटा कलेक्ट किया होगा, उसके बाद इस तरह से रिग्रेशन एनालिसिस किया होगा, उसके बाद फॉर्मूला निकाल करके हम लोगों ने पता किया होगा कि वो स्लोप कितना है, तो वो -266 है। ये -266 उसका स्लोप रहा होगा। हमारे एग्जाम्पल में ये स्लोप कितना है? -1। सवाल है कि फिर वो क्या था जो स्लोप के पहले था, उसको क्या कहते हैं? इंटरसेप्ट, मतलब ये वाला a. What is this value a? How do we calculate it? So a is equal to d bar minus b p bar. d bar मतलब ये, this is d bar और q d bar. तो यहां पर a कितना होगा? d bar कितना है? 3 माइनस b कितना है? -1 और p बार कितना है? 3। तो ये कितना हो जाएगा? 3 + 3 मतलब 0। तो आपका यहां पर हो गया a is 0। तो आपका इक्वेशन क्या बन गया? डिमांड इक्वेशन इज इक्वल टू 0 प्लस स्लोप इज -1 इंटू p, और क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड इज जस्ट इक्वल टू -p, क्योंकि b इज इक्वल टू -1। सो इस तरह से हम लोग कैलकुलेट करते हैं स्लोप को। और एक बार स्लोप कैलकुलेट हो गया, फिर हमको कोई भी प्राइस ले लेंगे 1 या 2 या 3, और उस पर हम कैलकुलेट कर लेंगे कि डिमांड कितना है। तो अभी मान लो यहां पर हम रखें क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड व्हेन प्राइस इज इक्वल टू 1, तो ये क्या हो जाएगा? प्राइस इज इक्वल टू 1, ये हो जाएगा क्वांटिटी। ये तो एक्चुअली 6 होगा ना कि 0। दिस विल बी 3 माइनस इंटू -1 इंटू 3, दिस विल बी 6, नॉट 0। दिस विल बी 6। हाँ
सर, इसमें स्मॉल b कौन सा है?
हाँ
सर, इसमें जो आप a इक्वल टू d बार माइनस b t बार है, इसमें b क्या है सर?
हाँ, ये है ना आपका, देखो आप ये इक्वेशन, क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड इक्वल टू a प्लस b p। अब हमारा ये इक्वेशन क्या आ गया है? a इज 6 प्लस स्लोप कितना निकला हमारा? ये रहा स्लोप -1। सो स्लोप इज -1 इंटू p। तो हमारा इक्वेशन क्या बन गया? 6 माइनस p। ये हमारा इक्वेशन आया क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड का। जैसे पहले वहां पे कितना था? 3550 माइनस 266p, ऐसा कुछ था। यहां हमारा इक्वेशन से क्या आया? 6 माइनस p। अब अगर p 1 है तो what will be the demand? 6 minus 1, that is 5. अगर p 2 है तो कितना होगा क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड? 6 minus 2, that is 4. तो इस तरह से आप क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड निकाल सकते हैं। और आपको फिर स्लोप निकालना, तो आपको निकालना क्या? P by Q, ये आपका निकालना है आपको, slope into P by Q, that is equation elasticity. तो slope is -1 और P अगर 1 है तो ये 1 और उसके कारण Q कितना हो जाएगा 5. So this will be -1 by 5 or -0.2. So this is how you can calculate the elasticity. Is this clear or not? Tell me. Any question? So देखो आपको हम एकदम सिंपल एक स्टेप बाय स्टेप बता दे रहे हैं, ठीक है? स्टेप बाय स्टेप आपको बता रहे हैं अभी क्या करना है. सबसे पहले हाउ टू कैलकुलेट स्लोप. स्टेप नंबर 1, collect data. Collect data on what and what? Of course, we're talking about slope of demand curve. Collect data on price and demand. Collect data on price and demand. This is the first step. What is the second step?
So calculate.
Do regression analysis as shown earlier. जो हमने किया था पिछले बार वो क्या किया था? सबसे पहले हमने निकाला था स्मॉल p, p माइनस p बार था वो. फिर क्या निकाला था? स्मॉल d, वो था d माइनस d बार. फिर क्या निकाला था? स्मॉल p का स्क्वायर विच इज व्हाट? p का होल स्क्वायर. और फिर क्या निकाला था? क्रॉस प्रोडक्ट p मल्टीप्लाइड बाई d, दैट इज pd. ये चार चीज आपको निकालना है थ्रू रिग्रेशन एनालिसिस. ये निकल जाए तो फिर आपको क्या करना है? कैलकुलेट b यूजिंग द फॉलोइंग फॉर्मूला. Using the following formula. What is the formula? B is equal to summation of small pd divided by summation of p square. तो हमारा वहां पे जो आया था वो summation of small pd कितना था? -10 और summation of p square कितना था? +10. तो ये वैल्यू हमारा आया था -1. फिर अब हमको चाहिए क्या? A. A is equal to d bar minus b p bar. d bar कितना निकला हमारा? पहले आप देख चुके हो d कितना था? d bar 3 माइनस b कितना निकला है? -1. p bar कितना था? -1. तो ये हो गया 6. तो आपका ये निकल गया, ये निकला आपका स्लोप और ये निकला आपका इंटरसेप्ट. तो आपका इक्वेशन क्या हो गया? क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड इज इक्वल टू 6 प्लस और b के जगह क्या लिखे? -1 इंटू p. और इसी को थोड़ा सा और सिंप्लीफाई कर दें तो 6 माइनस p. ये हमारा तरीका होता है निकालने का स्लोप और इंटरसेप्ट. एक बार हमारा स्लोप निकल जाए और इंटरसेप्ट निकल जाए तो हमारा डिमांड इक्वेशन निकल गया. अब p वैल्यू चेंज करते रहेंगे, 1 2 3 4 5 6 कुछ भी लिखते जाओ, यहां आपका क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड निकलता चला जाएगा. तो आपको जो स्लोप, आपको जो इलास्टिसिटी निकालना है वो है स्लोप इनटू p बाई q. तो आप निकाले स्लोप कितना निकला? -1 इंटू, अब p अगर है 1 तो यह लिखा दिया 1 और ये 1 होगा तो QD हो जाएगा 5, तो 1/5. So this will be -2.0. So this is the steps that, these are the steps that you have to follow in order to calculate demand elasticity. Similarly, you can go ahead with calculating price elasticity by first estimating the slope of the supply curve, estimating the intercept or the constant of the supply curve, and then finally calculating the elasticity of supply using the formula slope into P by Q. So this is how you calculate elasticity using which method?
Regression method.
And why are you calling it point method? Because हम किसी एक पॉइंट को ले लेते हैं डिमांड कर्व पे और उस पॉइंट पर कोई एक प्राइस होता है, तो वही रीजन है कि हम इसको पॉइंट मेथड बोलते हैं। जैसे कि अगर हम लोग यहाँ डिमांड कर्व ड्रॉ करें, दिस इज द डिमांड कर्व, और यहाँ पे हम लोग मेजर कर रहे हैं डिमांड और यहाँ मेजर कर रहे हैं प्राइस, एंड इफ यू विश टू कैलकुलेट द इलास्टिसिटी एट दिस पॉइंट कॉल्ड पॉइंट ए, तो ए पर क्या प्राइस है? मान लो प्राइस है 2 रुपीज, तो ये प्राइस जब 2 होगा तो क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड कितना होगा ये निकालना होगा यहाँ पर हमको। तो अभी यहाँ पर अगर प्राइस 2 कर दे, ये 6 माइनस पी 6 माइनस 2, तो ये क्या हो जाएगा 4, तो यहाँ पे लिखेंगे 4। अब स्लोप हमको पता है कि कितना है -1, तो यहाँ पे लिखेंगे -1 इंटू 2 बाई 4, सो ये कितना हो जाएगा -1 इंटू हाफ मतलब 0.5। तो इस तरह से हम लोग इसको इलास्टिसिटी को निकालते हैं यूजिंग द पॉइंट मेथड। आई होप हैव बीन एबल टू मेक दिस एंटायर प्रोसेस क्लियर। If you still have some doubts, please do not hesitate to ask me, because if you hesitate, then there is no point in attending this class. I will also be very dissatisfied with the class if you have not asked me questions which has bothered you. No question? Okay, so there we go. No question asked. All right. Now, next we go to present a separate presentation on sales forecasting. So right now I have to stop this one and present another one. So where is that? Let me just figure it out. Where is my presentation software? This is the one, my presentation software, recent, and this is the one, demand and forecasting. You are able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is a different presentation, but this time it is on demand estimation and forecasting. And this presentation has been made from a book called Managerial Economics, co-authored by Thomas and Morris. And in the 9th edition of this book, I think there are more editions available now. In the 9th edition of this book, this topic called demand estimation and forecasting appeared in chapter 7. But in the latest books, the chapters may have changed because the authors may have introduced more chapters in their newer version. So this is what we are going to present now, called demand estimation and forecasting. So let us just quickly go through some preliminaries about it, some preliminaries. So if you wish to estimate demand, by the way, what do you think does the word estimation of demand mean? If someone asks you, estimate the demand for your company's product. Suppose you are working for a car manufacturer and the owners of car manufacturing plant ask you, what is your demand estimate? What will that mean?
Ananya this end. So the idea is that to understand from the market surveys that whether there is a demand for a particular car or is there a new segment that can be introduced based on the pulse of the customer. So like all the market research companies that work, they can come in handy in such situations. If there is a new product to be launched or if there is any particular product that is already running, whether there is a viability or a new demand for it.
That is actually a different perspective. But suppose you are already producing certain types of vehicles and you are producing one particular brand of a passenger car. Now you wish to know how many cars you are likely to sell in the next 6 months.
So that can be also done based on the previous data for that previous data that we have, and what kind of estimation in terms of growth is the organization expecting. So keeping those two factors in mind.
Yeah, that's right. So basically what we are trying to do is to look into the future. To what do we expect future to be like in terms of selling the car? Will we be able to sell 500 units of our car per month for the next 6 months? Or will we be able to sell 1,000 cars per month for the next 6 months or 2,000 cars per month for the next 6 months and so on? लेकिन हमको पता कैसे लगेगा कि हम अगले 6 महीनों में कितना कार बेच सकेंगे? और ये जरूरी है जानना इसलिए क्योंकि अगर हमारे को ये आइडिया नहीं होगा कि हम अगले 6 महीनों में कितनी गाड़ियां बेच सकेंगे तो फिर हम अपने प्रोडक्शन को प्लान कैसे करेंगे? So for production planning, it is of utmost importance that you get some sort of an idea about the likely number of units of the car sold in the next to be sold in the next 6 months or next 1 year. तो कैसे पता करेंगे? तो one of the answers which you gave to this question is that we can look at the past data and then we can project it into the future. So on the basis of the trend, we can find out how many cars we are likely to sell, and that is a perfectly valid answer. So let us just try to see the different varieties of techniques that are available to a business manager to forecast the sales. So one of them happens to be what we call consumer interviews. Consumer interviews. What do we do in consumer interviews? We speak to the consumers. We present to them a detailed questionnaire and we ask lots of questions. Hopefully, they will answer those questions. And on the basis of the answers that they give us, we form an idea कि हम कितनी गाड़ियां अगले 6 महीनों में बेच पाएंगे. Very simple. Of course, the technique is very difficult because we got to know what kind of questions to be included in the questionnaire, then how to ask them, because many potential consumers will simply not be willing to answer your questions. They will ask you rather, why shall I answer your question? So this is one. There are many potential problems, like how do you select a representative sample? Normally samples are random, having characteristics that accurately reflect the population as a whole. Now again, this is a topic which you should thoroughly study, how to collect samples. There are different selection techniques like random samples and non-random samples. You have simple random sample, you have clustered sample, you have area sample, you have systematic sampling, you have stratified sampling. There are many of them. So this is what is supposed to be done. You have to first collect a representative sample. Likely you will do so through representative sample, through random sample. And then response bias, you never know whether the questions, whether the answers that you are getting from the respondents are correct or biased. And it's quite possible that the respondent just doesn't know the answer of your question. So if you ask me whether you will buy a car in the next 6 months or so, I may not know the answer of that question. So these are some of the problems. Of course, as you were saying, there are market studies and experiments that you can go for. Market studies attempt to hold everything constant during the study except the price of the good. You conduct an experiment. If price is held constant at this level, then what will be the demand for your car? If price is changed from one level to the next level, then what will be the demand for your car, etc. Lab experiments use volunteers to simulate actual buying conditions. These are not the things which we will discuss in these classes. Of course, field experiments observe actual behavior of consumers. And suppose you are a sales representative, or if you are, say, auto advisor working in an automobile dealership, then you will be interacting with lots of potential customers who will visit your showroom to potentially buy your car. And on the basis of your interaction with those potential consumers, you will observe their actual behavior. And on the basis of their actual behavior, you may be in a position to know the pulse of the consumers. You may be in a position to know whether they will actually buy the car or not. And if they will, then how many of them will buy the car? How many cars will you be able to sell? You can then call them up and find out what are they thinking about it. So all these things are what we call qualitative way of knowing whether the consumers actually want to buy anything or not. But the most important thing which we will concentrate on in the next 1 or 2 class will be empirical demand functions, wherein we will collect data, and on the basis of the data, we will do some analysis, especially regression analysis, and then on the basis of regression analysis, we'll be able to predict as to how many cars will be sold if value of some variable is x1 or x2 or x3. So that is what we actually do. So this demand equation is derived from actual market data. I have just shown you one example of how to derive demand equation from actual market data. So when I showed you this data, equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, quantity demanded is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And on the basis of this data, we derived the demand equation as 6 minus P. This is what we call demand equation derived from actual market data. This is the equation which we use for forecasting purposes. Then it is useful in making pricing and production decisions. So how? Because by changing P, you can calculate expected quantity demanded, and that will help you in taking a final call as to what should be the price point at which you should sell your product. In linear form, an empirical demand function can be specified as this. Now here, you will notice that instead of just one variable, that is price, coupled with the quantity demanded, we have included 2 more variables, M and PR. What does M stand for? M is the consumer income. And what does PR stand for? P is the price of some related product, some related good, let us say good R. That related good may be a complementary good, or that related good may be a substitute good. So basically, this is what we call multiple regression. And if we have only these two, what happened? And if we have only these two, which ones? That is Q and P. If we have only Q and P, then it is called simple regression or bivariate regression. So there are 2 things, remember, bivariate and multivariate. If you have bivariate, it means you are dealing with only 2 variables, demand for a certain product and the price of that particular product. But if you have multiple variables like income of the consumer, like price of related product, then it becomes multivariate analysis. So you should have data. You should have data on this. You should have data on you should have data on quantity demanded, price at which they were demanded, the income of the consumer, and the related price of the product. I think my remote control is, okay, connection is lost. All right, so there we are. Now, what we will do then is we will try and see how to estimate this empirical demand function. Now, I will show this how to do it in my Monday's class. But in the meantime, I will quickly share with you a data file which will give you an idea about the kind of data that you will need to have in order to estimate the empirical demand function of this type. So what do we do then? We exit this presentation. We exit this presentation and then we go to a data file. I hope you are able to see this.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then I think that particular file, where has that gone? Looks like I'll have to start all over again. Pizza data. Where is pizza data? There it is. Pizza data. So there we are. So look at this data and then I'll call it a day. Observation 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 24. So we have 24 observations. Each observation can be considered as 1 day or 1 hour. And these are the quantity of a certain pizza sold per day. These are the quantities. So what does this mean? On day 20, 2,633 units of a particular brand of pizza were sold. What does this indicate? 2,834 units of the pizza were sold. But at what price? At $8.5 per pizza. At this point, price 7.50 on day 8, 3059 units sold, and at the same price of to have data on income of the consumers. Let us say the community average income of consumers in which the pizza is being sold is 25,500 per month, 600 per month. Then this is how it is changing. This is how these incomes are changing. And you will notice that they are not changing much because incomes do not change on a daily basis. So if you consider it as a monthly sale, then it does make some sense. And then these are the two prices. Price 1, price 2, they are prices of two substitute brands of pizza. So I do not know what are the different brands of pizzas available in the market. I suppose one is, can you name some pizza brands which are sold in the market?
Pizza Hut, Domino's.
One is Domino's.
Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut, Domino's. Pizza Hut, Domino, and let's say local pizza. So price, so let's say this price stands for Domino's Pizza. This price stands for price of McDonald's Pizza. This price stands for price of Pizza Hut Pizza. And these are therefore 3 different brands of pizzas and 3 different sets of prices. On the basis of these data, which we have for 24 days, we can then calculate the empirical demand function. We can then calculate the empirical demand function, which is of this type, which is in linear form, and we will explain it to you next time. So thank you very much for the time being. In the next class, we will start our discussion on how to compute A, B, C, and D on the basis of that set of data that I showed you. And of course, manual calculation will no longer be possible. We will only use SPSS software to calculate the coefficients of this empirical demand function. And then we will see how we can use this empirical demand function to make predictions about sales and demand. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, shoot. Do you have any question? None. So I think you have class starting in 5 minutes. You just stay here for 1 minute more so that I can take your attendance. Is Steffi Kujur? Who is Steffi Kujur? Is she around?